Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I haven't posted anything for a while, so today I decided to do a slightly rarer variation. It's not seen too often, but it's a thing that can happen to you. It's the London system and the Dutch defense. Dutch is something which you don't get as commonly with black. The Dutch is basically goes with d4, d4, f5. It's basically saying that after white plays d4, usually the e4 square is what is somewhat kind of weak, you could say. After d5 you can also get control, and then you can just you can get full control of the d5 square, though that's the main point of the Dutch defense. Dutch defense also has the idea that you don't want to play for some destroyish lines in the queen's gambit declined, which end up in simple endgames which can easily be held in a draw. When you play the Dutch, you eventually get into some very crazy lines as white and black, so the chance of having a result is much higher. So it goes with d4 f5. When I play this move, and if I check out like the analytics, the draw ratio drops by 15%. So in the queen's gambit decline, the draw ratio is around 50%, but in the Dutch defense, the draw ratio is 32%. So that's like a huge drop, and black usually has a decent chance playing here. So in the Dutch, I'm going to talk about the London structure in the Dutch. If you are someone who has played like solid theory and Queen Gambit declined, you can play this with Queen's Gambit decline structure, but the London system also works because after this f5 move, I tend to feel that this bishop becomes extremely powerful with these open diagonals which start. And again, this bishop on d1 after you get e3, you don't necessarily have to place it on d3 and hit this weak pawn. You always have this target to get on the king side. The Dutch does open a lot of counter opportunities. The only advantage why black gets is the control over the e4 square. So I'll show you the line. It goes as knight f3, knight f6, bishop f4, g6. G6 is a very common move in the Dutch. Again, developing the bishop, you don't really want to bring the bishop here because you want this pawn. And then it's like a slightly sideline. A bishop can also come over here. So you play e3, bishop g7, bishop c4. Yeah, normal London, I would have told you to play bishop to d3, but bishop to c4, d3 is not doing anything. c4, you're basically just having a very annoying bishop. So e6 comes first, just stopping your diagonal for some time. c3, we have to maintain our bridge. We're not going to break our bridge. Not going to try to stay away in our knight c6. Knight b. Okay, knight c6 is a possibility. Another which immediately comes is check. Pawn comes, bishop blocks, bring the bishop back to g2, and then you play c4. This position looks like black has excellent control of the center, but it's a position where white just has to not get too overwhelmed. Because if you see all the weaknesses, especially on this diagonal, your dark square bishop can turn into a beast very quickly. And they're very quick. Only problem here is our light square bishop. Many players, instead of bringing the bishop back, many players just exchange. Knight takes, and now just simply queen to b3. They usually have to play some move like b6. Knight comes to d7 and c5. This structure again, if you see all these weaknesses in the dark squares, it's just too much. And these holes in the position. The only piece we could improve is this knight, but it's actually kind of fine. This queen does a good job of controlling the light squares here. The only reason we trade the light square bishop, thinking that all the light square weaknesses here, is that if you're not gonna take, where do you go? You can come back, but if you do come back, the queen just takes. If you can't come here because the pawn is attacking, and if you come all the way back, you're basically hitting this rock pawn chain, which is no point hitting. So I feel like that just won't help out. So many people do bring the bishop back, like after knight c6 doesn't happen. Sometimes it's just me. But okay, we play knight to d2, d5. Here the move, and I would recommend instead of directly bishop missing bringing the bishop back and just pretty much making it like feel like a trapped piece here. We would try to go for some bishop b5, trying to weaken the pawn structure on the queen side, because black has already committed his pawn structure on the king side. by playing all these not unnecessary moves, but just moves which can cause a lot of weaknesses, like the dark square weakness here. It's just a lot of unnecessary weaknesses black has here. So we try to provoke at six, because the thing white here sees here, black sees here, is that this bishop is the bishop which is supposed to be the weak one. So they usually play h6. Sorry, not h6, a6. Many people would just take the knight here, then play this variation: knight takes, pawn takes, maybe something like queen to b6. It's a strong variation for sure. But I, as a London player, don't really feel comfortable, because after the move like c5 comes, now the thing is this bishop isn't as helpful as stopping this diagonal, because there's this pawn on c6. And after, even if he takes, he has a c5 move again. I just don't like this position as much. It's definitely playable. It gives black some counterplay on the queen side too. I just simply feel okay keeping the bishop. It's like a position where it depends on what kind of player are you. I am more of a player who will play for some strategical advancements and won't really go for some concrete lines. Anyone who takes the knight here is not a bad move for sure. I'm pretty sure the engine probably recommends that. But I, as a solid London player, doesn't like don't like to give away the light square bishop, especially for that knight on c6. Yeah, it's just that knight on c6 is just a very provoking move. You're stopping c5 ideas. C5 ideas can be annoying also, so I just don't want to allow anything too much. So basically, I bring my bishop back. You can also continue the pin, c5, or then bishop comes here. This looks like you weaken the structure a bit more and cause some weaknesses here. Probably not. The bishop just gets another square. But the thing is with this, our queen just feels very. I can't say. There's no good word for the queen. It feels a bit suspicious. It can go here, but again, it's just hitting rocks. The only good squares for the queen is like b3. You have some a4 ideas, maybe takes, and then, excuse me, then you have some ideas of exploding the a file. So the bishop, that's why I just recommend bringing the bishop back. Take if you want to, it's your wish. Bishop back. Bishop comes to d7. Queen comes to b3. Here moves possible are a3. Obviously, you don't want to do that as black. You're kind of making your rook stuck behind this pawn. Some ideas of b3, b6, a5 are some possibilities, but the thing is, as a player, I basically have no problem if black tries to push on the queen side, because black's major advantage here is not this bishop. This bishop's very dead. It's just stuck between my pawn structure. Same with this bishop. Black's position is just very unfavorable here, and as white, only thing I see black can play for is this very good outpost here. But the thing about that outpost is I can even play bishop g5 as a move which I don't really want to play. Yes, I'm pinning the knight, but obviously he'll find some ways to bring this knight back here, because this knight isn't doing anything anyway. And then now I don't really want to take this bishop, because like, okay, his knight's gonna be strong, but I can exchange it here for my weak bishop over here. Because I have no problem exchanging this knight for this bishop, because this knight's like the strong one. I wouldn't do it here because this knight's not that strong. Here, obviously, without thinking, I'll just take and have a very nice, comfortable position by just dominating the dark squares. So bishop b5 is something I won't play. I would just play queen b3. Just simply making sure that black doesn't have enough time to just consolidate here. Because last thing I want is, after black getting this knight here, black somehow manages to man over this knight here and back to f6. Then this position is, I could say, equal, but right now it's not, because black's pieces are not coordinated well towards the center. So that's all I want to say, that black wouldn't really black has some chances, but it's just how well can white just dominate all the dark squares, and it'll just be simple. So black just play b5 here. Again, it's a move black doesn't really want to play. The possibility is also rook to b1, b8. Sorry, defending this pawn. Again, rook to b8, just a passive move. No one wants to play rook to b8. I think rook to b8. You might play it if you're like some player who's just begging for a draw and not anything else. Rook b8 for sure, solid move. After rook b8, doesn't feel like black has any ideas. Black's just hoping that white doesn't have any ideas which are correct. B5 is something a bit more committal. Obviously allows some a4 ideas, which are suspicious because of these. Now this bishop after a4, this bishop just starts feeling a lot better now. Because if you don't take, then I take and I eventually win a pawn. And if you do take, this bishop has now a target. And now I could still, if I want, he would play knight here and I could exchange for sure. Maybe if I want to. But now I feel like this bishop has a lot more value if I get a5. And I'm after a5, I feel like I have a dominating position. But obviously, the thing first I would do as white is castle. Castling is obviously not necessary here. It's just something you want to do. Just make sure the center does not explode. Because there are many ideas where black tries to go for some crazy lines while he tries to push e4. It doesn't work here for sure. E4 is just a blunder. But there are many lines where he gets e4, d5, sacrifices the two pawns in the center, and then the attack just quickly starts coming. Currently not possible, but I just want to avoid any chances. Any player here, if I think if you look at the engine, it will obviously just recommend a4, a4 because obviously it sees how to defend against that crazy attack. I could probably show that to you if like I check the engine. Yep, a4 is the most suggested move for sure. So yeah, you could play a4. I would just castle, making sure everything's safe here. Castle knight e4. Now this is where the middle game has begun. The opening theory is gone. Now is the decision you try to make is, do you really want to play a5? There's a position where black is very well committed that black wants a solid game with not too much craziness. Sorry, not too much craziness. I mean, not too much defensive. I could say because of the committal moves he has played, like b5, f4, f5. It's just this whole light square mess just makes this bishop feel extremely uncomfortable. If you're playing a standard game, if you're playing any blitz game, maybe you could just immediately play a4. A4 has some ideas, but in a standard game, if you're like a strategical player, I think the number one move you see is knight, bishop takes knight, exchanging your bad piece, which is this bishop for this extremely good knight, which is basically like not okay, excuse me, which is basically just controlling a lot of squares, which can be pretty important. It's just an active central knight, doesn't have extremely good attacking value. But the only thing I would like to say is do not be scared of this knight. If you're gonna play a move like a4, never feel like this knight is ever gonna dominate your position. It's a good knight for sure, but is it a knight which is really doing anything? Like only way I see a hope of attacking for black is something like g5, which many players are afraid of. So instead of maybe taking, if you don't want to take and you don't want to play a4, many people do play h5. H5 is basically a preventing move. And if black ever plays a6 thinking that okay, I really want g5, in that position I feel like it's a position where black's extending a bit too much. Pawns are gonna start falling soon. It's just like that. You just have to be careful here, not go crazy. H4. But I would recommend for anyone who's just playing this in a standard game, just play bishop takes knight. Bishop take knight simply. I'm pretty sure your opponent's gonna play f takes if he or she is a good player. D takes just useless because what are you gonna hit now? F takes, some attacking chances maybe. Here it's gonna have to be a passive maneuver. You can try some moves like knight here, but I'm usually very scared that my knight just gets into like extremely uncomfortable positions. And then after g4, bishop comes back, g5. This knight just I don't like how the knight looks, and I don't really want to. I could maybe try something like this, and the knight takes, pawn takes. But now I feel like the pawn structure which I have and this dark square bishop's domination is very less. So I simply just bring this knight back to e1. Looks extremely passive, I know. Castling or g5, one possibility. The thing with g5 is g5, just bring the bishop back. If you try any h5 tricks, okay, h3. Keep pushing. My bishop, it's solid here, controlling this beautiful diagonal. That's all I need. Don't really care about anything. So, really attacking the bishop's not a good idea. Castling is what I think. black should do. After castling, just don't be scared. Now you get your knight here. It's like a nice maneuver. Comes from here to here to here. Or if you don't want it to go there, it's just black has the space and the two bishops, but the space and the two bishops are pretty much useless for black. This bishop is extremely dead. This bishop is obviously dead. It's just that white has. It's a position which I could say it's unclear, but obviously it's white who's trying to go for some attacking chances. Black is pretty much hoping that the queen side does not collapse. Is there one disadvantage of this? Is I think the king side. That's where black has some edge because the rooks are already open and the queen can quickly just come out here. And black does not have a good defense. White, sorry, because the queen is extremely far away and there's no way you're gonna quickly reach anywhere. So I'm just saying that after knight c2, possibilities. Maybe black just goes queen f6, trying to put some pressure. Here, as a player, I can see that this, like, I look at my pieces, which are extremely weak. And by weak pieces, I obviously see these two knights. This knight cannot go anywhere. This knight can go to one good square, but that good square can be traded off. In the general, this knight's extremely weak because I can't bring it back to e1, obviously. It's just, I feel this position is extremely uncomfortable. If I'm playing for white here, it could feel like uncomfortable. But you always have to look out. This queen f6 move is also a sacrifice if you didn't notice. There is bishop takes pawn. Obviously, a move you can play without thinking. But bishop takes pawn, just black tends to maybe give this pawn away just so he could get some counterplay with takes, bishop takes, knight takes. It's a complicated line. You can take that pawn, obviously. You can take that pawn, be a pawn up. So queen f6, obviously a possibility. Many people just simply like to play king h8. Get your king out of all the shenanigans. Because one of the plans here is to play e5 takes e4, e4, and then try to get some counterplay in the center. So obviously king h8, my move is just to recommend trade your knights. They are terrible in this position. Try to get them to good squares. So maybe knight comes to c4. The question is, do you really want to take this knight back? Because after this knight is c4 and you don't take, eventually the knight's value starts to go up. Many players would take. Now is a time where you start playing a bit aggressive chess. Obviously, one possibility again is to play c6. c6 looks like a good move, but it's extremely weakening, I feel. This bishop again dominating. But you have to be careful of there's this always possibility of an exchange sacrifice here. Because as white, black can see that, okay, my pieces as white are extremely far away from the king side. Like this knight is not getting anywhere soon. Can't go there, can't go there. You have to move the rook, get the knight back, and bring it. Yeah, it's complicated. So there are many chances, but instead of just c3, there's an exchange sack. And just takes. And I feel like this position is double-edged maybe. Because you usually tend to see queen coming out very quickly. And then I feel like as white, you have to be extremely quick with the rook here, knight here. Maybe eventually bring the knight here. And then this is somehow you have to hold. It's a suspicious position, but you always have that counterplay. All I'm trying to say in this whole position is just be careful and just don't mess up. That's basically it. Knight b4 takes. Rook takes. The main plan is don't play any move which is not very. How do I say this? You have to be mentally prepared that it's going to get into a strategical crush. If you're an attacking player, this is very much going to be annoying. You might, if you're an attacking player, it's better you don't even get into this line after your knight comes here. Just immediately play a5. Crush out all the shenanigans over there. And there are obviously ideas of g4, bishop comes back. Some ideas of some attacking chances here. Now this is the time where black will go all out. You just play h3. Nothing works. All this stuff. Yeah, you can push. I won't take if you push. I'll just simply start gobbling pawns here. Takes. You could obviously just play bishop takes. Rook takes is just something you gotta try to trade, put the queen away. The queen comes here, and then I take this, and I have just a very comfortable position. If you're ever thinking after queen takes and then pawn takes, those are possible ideas. But then after pawn takes, king comes to h2. Again, everything's comfortable. Only thing you have to watch out here is this bishop can be traded by this knight after this crazy pushes. Maybe this knight could take this bishop, but then after pawn takes, you have just simple attack now. Everything's your way. It's just confusing. It's not a very exciting. Okay, not like by exciting I mean it's not a very how do I say that, aggressive opening, but you can get aggressive ideas in this. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and I will try to find a game on this maybe when I've played. And please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you probably tomorrow.